Hello and welcome to a new video of the series Laces of Ireland for Heritage Week 2023. My guest today is Nora Finnegan from the Kenmare Lace and Design Centre. Hello, Nora, how are you?
Hello, Gabriella, how are you?
Tell us a little bit about how you came to discover lace. It must have been a while ago.
It was indeed quite a long time ago, but I think I need to go back first to how lace making began in Kenmare. The Poor Clare nuns came to Kenmare in 1861. They were brought here to teach, to open a school. They did that, but they soon realised that the girls had no way of earning a living in the town. There was nothing here for them. There were no factories, no big houses, nothing. So they looked around and wondered what they could do. So they thought they would give them a skill. And the skill they gave them was lace making. And that was very appropriate because it was the Victorian era and Queen Victoria wore a lot of lace. And I like to think that she did it on purpose in order to create work for women, because a lot of people she's not that popular with a lot of people in this country, but I like to think that the only thing she could do was create an industry by wearing lace, and that she did in spades, because it was a huge fashion and it was a great commercial thing to be in. So the nuns brought the girls into the convent. They taught them to make lace. And when the girls came in first, now in those days, of course, everybody could use a needle and thread anyway, but their work would not have been good enough for selling. But the Reverend Mother insisted that they get paid out of their very meagre resources, which were meagre at the time. She insisted that they get paid anyway in order to encourage them. And this worked really well, and they established the lace industry. And girls would come into the convent. It was always made in the convent. Nobody made it at home, for the simple reason that Kenmare lace is a very fine lace. And when they worked on fine lace, they only worked on it up to 12 o'clock in the day when the light was at its best. They had windows high up in the roof, so they had great light. They had ideal conditions for lace making. So that was the only place it was made. It worked very well for quite a long time. Then 1881, there was an exhibition in Cork, and some pieces from here, among others, won prizes. The judges felt that in general, the work was very good, but design was not. They were just copying designs that they had. So Alan Cole, who was one of the judges, and his father was Cole, the founder of one of the founders of the Victoria and Albert Museum. He went around and gave illustrated lectures in design in the convents. They took it very seriously here, and they got a teacher to come from the School of Art in Cork, a man called James Brennan, regularly once a month to teach the nuns art with a view to improving design. Now, he didn't come to teach them to design, but he taught them art, so they themselves designed. And as a result of that, we have most wonderful designs. And we use those designs to this day, and we develop them, and we work on them, and we change them. Now, on the left, we have a framed piece, and it is a design for lace painted by the nuns. One of the designs that they painted in the convent. And there's a piece of lace underneath it, which is one of the pieces. It's in the corner there, you can see it's a kind of a little teardrop shaped piece. And an interesting thing about that is the date, 1885, I think it is given in the bottom right hand corner and of the or just under the design. And then the actual piece, it says design for handkerchief. Imagine a handkerchief like that. I think they were strictly for dropping, actually, but it is a design for handkerchief, and it says Irish point lace. And I think that's very interesting, because people nowadays call it needle lace, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because Limerick lace is a needle lace, Carrick Cross lace is a needle lace. You use a needle for all of them. But Kenmare is a needle point lace. You just use the needle and the point of the needle only. So I thought that was an interesting point. The piece on the left then is an actual piece also displaying a lot of stitches. And we have made that into a postcard, actually. We've sold it here in the Lace Centre for the last 30 years as a postcard. But it's very interesting. It has a huge variety of stitches. That actual piece is in the Heritage Centre downstairs here. And if you're ever in there, make sure you pull out the drawers, because you'll miss it if you don't. It's in there for protection. We work on them, and we change them maybe a little, but they are the basis for most of our work. So this made a huge difference then to Kenmare lace. It became very famous. Queen Victoria had 5 pieces of Kenmare lace, and we have here a piece that was designed for Queen Victoria. And actually one of our lace makers, Sinead Hennessy, made it a few years ago. And you can see we have the design, and we have the piece that Sinead made, and you can see how it was worked straight from it. Beautiful piece of work.
This is the story of Kenmare lace and how Kenmare lace came about, because it's a particular type of lace, inspired by probably Italian laces. But how did you get involved?
Yeah, well, I was involved in about 34 years ago now. I was involved in a town development association at the time. And it was during the second last recession, I suppose. And people were wondering, what could we do? Something needed to be done. The town was not in a good way. So I joined up anyway, and I became part of the enterprise group. And we looked around, and I thought, what about this lace that used to be made in Kenmare once? I asked about it, and everybody said, oh, not at all, that's too difficult. Nobody's going to make that. Everybody thought I was nuts. Anyway, I went down to the convent, being young and foolish, and asked the nuns if we got a group together, would they teach it? Now, Sister Frances was elderly at the time, and she was near to retiring, but she said, no, I don't want to teach it, but I will show you and you can pass it on. And that's exactly what has been happening for the last 34 years. For a little while after that, we had a cooperative, and for about 3 years, but it was cumbersome and difficult, and it was like trying to feed another person. So after 3 years, the other people who had been involved in it felt they had had enough, but I had put a lot into it myself, so I decided to carry on. And we actually had, for those 3 years, we had a shop on Main Street. And the other interesting thing that happened at that time was the year that I got involved and started to teach it, Sister Frances retired and the lace room closed. Now, I had no idea this was going to happen when I got involved, but it was kind of the way things come together, I suppose, sometimes. And so we started off, we formed our co-op, and we started off up in what was the old boys' school. And we ran the exhibition. We had the lace from the convent, the old lace, and we exhibited it there for that summer, and demonstrated how it was made and so on. And now that was very important, because it meant that the Kenmare lace was in all the guidebooks as a very important place to go, but it didn't disappear from the guidebooks because we kept it going. There was continuity. So at the end of that time, we moved over onto Main Street, and we had a shop there, and we had the old lace on display, and we made some, and we sold it. Now, I had been teaching it in the meantime, And in fact, when I started to teach it, I would go to Sister Frances for a lesson, and she would tell me what to do and show me the next stitch. And then I would go and teach that. And it was a great way of learning it because you had to keep repeating what you were doing. So anyhow, after 3 years then, most of the others decided that they really had enough of it, but I continued on myself. And then I continued on that year in a little small room upstairs over a jeweler shop. But it was fine. It was very small. It was like a little wonderland because I had lace on the roof and everywhere because there wasn't much space. Then for the next year, then the Heritage Centre came on stream. And that was great because there was somewhere to put the old collection. And the whole exhibition area was put together. Then there was some left over and they wondered what they would do with that. There was a vacant room upstairs, so they put it in there and they asked me to look after it. And the same people who had been making the lace for the co-op continued to make it, and I would sell it for them there. And that's kind of the way it's gone on really since then.
It's a unique place, so there are not many places in the country you can go to see lace other than museums, and you have all the materials there and all the good advice. And that's really precious, and people are talking, whatever lace maker I meet, they want to come and see you in the shop. Now, can you tell us a little bit about how is Kenmare lace made? Because it's a needle lace and it has a different technique from Carrickmacross and Limerick lace that were already explained in this series.
Yeah. Yes, well, it is, but there, of course, there are certain similarities, particularly with Carrickmacross lace. But Kenmare is what we call a true lace. You only use the needle and thread. You do not have any background. Say for Carrickmacross and Limerick, you have your tulle, your net background. You don't have that. Kenmare lace, Irish crochet lace, bobbin lace, and tatting would all be true laces in that you don't use any background. So to make Kenmare lace, you start off with 2 pieces of cloth at the back. Over that is your pattern. Over that you have a mat contact. You couch around the outline of your design. That is, you lay down a double thread in front and you bring a thread up from the back. It's called a bridge. It does what a bridge does. It comes up one side of your couching thread on the front, over the top and down the other side. And then when that's done, when it's all couched, it's all outlined, you fill it in. And to fill it in, you use a detached buttonhole stitch. And that is a very tiny stitch. Generally, the buttonhole stitch, if anybody remembers it from school days, it's all very tiny stitches, all the same size. But we break that rule and we vary the size of the stitch so that if you want an open ground, then you will make an open stitch. And if you want very tight and closed in, you will make a very small tight stitch. And that is how you get the variation in the stitches.
What I want to ask you next is to talk about the samples you gave me.
This piece, it's a kind of a work of cooperation, really. I designed it, Sinead made it. The local jeweler, Paul Kelly, made the lovely wire frame around it. And we presented it to her because she opened the 2013 festival for us. Of course, we ran 2 festivals which were amazing, and we had an awful lot of events, but it was an awful lot of hard work. We just didn't have enough people to do it properly again, so we didn't. This is a piece of my own that I won a prize in the RDS and designed. You have to design your own piece for the RDS, so I was lucky to win a prize with that. Now, this one is a very special piece, very close to my heart, because I made those two butterflies for my daughter. She got married in 2021, and you can see on the bottom left her wedding veil, where they were attached to the back of her veil. And they were done in Kenmare lace, very fine thread, and the one on the right then is a close-up. There were a lot of stitches, and it took me over a year to make it because the thread was so fine and the stitches were quite complicated. If you look at the one on the right that we've done a close-up on, that's a bit of rose point, and they did some of that here in Kenmare. Mostly it was flat needle point, but they did some raised point as well, and that's a tribute to that.
Beautiful, beautiful piece.
These two little fans went to Japan for the Guild of Irish Lace Makers exhibition at the IOLI Congress. And the one on the right is done with number 60 thread. The one on the left is done with number 30 thread. And the point about them is that it shows the difference between the different weights of thread. And they're both the same pattern, but they look quite different. And if you see them in real life, they look even more different, even though it's the same pattern done in the two different threads.
About past project, you mentioned the two Kenmare Lace festivals that you organized.
Yes,
that was in
2013 and 2015. And we had how many exhibitions had we? I think I can't even remember now. I think it was 3 exhibitions, and we had a load of teachers. Actually, the demonstration area here that we have all the different laces, and it's a bit unusual to see so many laces together. And the reason they were all made here is because Kenmare lace being so fine that it had to be very expensive. So they needed to have other laces that were a bit less expensive as more bread and butter items.
So what other laces are you making and are you selling in the center?
Well, we make bobbin lace, Irish crochet lace. We make quite a bit of that because it's the quickest, and it appeals to a lot of people. And we sell some Carrickmacross lace and bobbin, Carrickmacross bobbin, Irish crochet lace, and some cross stitch. We have a lady who makes beautiful bookmarks and cross stitch, designs them herself. And of course the Kenmare lace. And we have our kit as well. We sell lace books.
I know you also taught a workshop during one of the IOLI congresses on Kenmare lace.
Yes. And
any other associations you're part of, organizations?
The IOLI, that's the American one, and then there's the
OIDFA.
OIDFA, yes, that was the one I was trying. Yes, that's the one that the fans went to, was OIDFA. And of course GOIL, the Guild of Irish Lace Makers, I'm part of that as well. And that's a great organization. It kind of links everybody together, you know.
I know you organize classes.
Yes. Oh yes, we are in the winter time when it's quiet here, we do classes now. I used to do them all myself, but Sinead took over some classes last winter, which was wonderful. And Fiona Harrington teaches classes as well. She's just come back from Montreal now recently. And last summer I was in Oklahoma teaching for a week with the IOLI. So we get around a bit.
Yeah, and you spread the skills of Kenmare lace all over the world.
Yes.
Any future projects?
Well, we have for Heritage Week now, we have started a heritage group here. We hope to eventually maybe get a museum together because we have a huge collection of all kinds of lace and handwork from the convent. They did everything here. They did macrame, embroidery, tapestry and the lace and the designs. There's so much stuff. We need a special museum to put it into now that the nuns have gone and left us the remainder of what they had. So we're working on that, and we formed a heritage group, and as part of that heritage group, we are running events for Heritage Week. So Sinead will be teaching 2 days, and I will be demonstrating.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, yes, our website is kenmarelace.ie, www.kenmarelace.ie. We're on Facebook at Kenmare Lace, YouTube at Kenmare Lace, and Instagram at Kenmare Lace.
And I added a little map here to see the Heritage Center is. And for people who want to come and see you, I know you're open over the summer months.
Yes.
So until September?
Until mid-October, yes. Yeah, I'm open every day, Monday to Saturday from 10:30 to 1, 2:15 to 5, and until mid-October. And then in the wintertime, my phone number is usually on the door. So if anybody really wants to come in and have a look at the lace or a chat, they can just give me a call.
They have to make an appointment. It would be good to get in touch before, because in winter it's more quiet. Thank you very, very much, Nora. It was a pleasure to talk to you, as always. And we'll share this online